Record of votes and proceedings for Thursday, 9th November 2023.
Honorable members, I don't know whether all of you have finished reading your votes and proceedings. If not, I'm prepared to give you up to 10 minutes to go through the votes and proceedings before we consider them further. I'll give you till 1:15.
This is the Unity Broadcasting. As today the Minister of Finance will come read the budget.
Papo.
Steglu, as the Minister of Finance, carried the budget this morning. At any time from now, it will start. This is Unity Broadcasting. As they bring on a live coverage at the House of Parliament. Precisely, the Minister of Finance will carry the 2024 budget. So stay glued as they don't get them 10 minutes for go through the important procedures. So we will continue for stay glued as we no one go off now, but we got it on till they start. This is the Unity Broadcasting as the speaker don't get them 10 minutes for them to go through important procedures before they start the reading of the budget. This is Unity Broadcasting as we did live at the House of Parliament as today the Minister of Finance they read the 2024 budget. As yesterday we don't call it the Finance Act yesterday. The new Finance Act we will be there at the house yesterday up till 10 o'clock on the net. So this morning we carry the budget. This is the Unity Broadcasting. We'll continue for stay glued. We'll continue for follow we as we they bring on a live coverage from every part of the country where we there. As we bring on a live coverage of all important programs then for the country. This is the Unity Broadcasting as today we did live in the House of Parliament. As the Minister of Finance, we can read the 2024 budget. Waiting government plan for do 2024. The Minister carrying the budget now. This is the Unity Broadcasting online TV. We are the best online TV for Sierra Leone as we they bring on everything, entertainment, politics, education. We they bring on everything we from United Sierra Leone. This is the Unity Broadcasting as we they live in the Parliament. As any time from now, the Minister of Finance will read the budget. As the Speaker decide for give them 10 minutes for letting them go through the important proceedings before in the start. Just cancel. Just cancel. Just cancel. It's not 10 million.
Okay, no problem.
Record of votes and proceedings for Thursday, 9th November 2023.
Honorable members,
Wait.
please take your seats. We shall now consider our votes and proceedings. Don't you have the electronic copy? Should be right in front of you. Are you? No. Members, have you been served with your tablets?
Yes, sir.
Using them, not so?
Yes, sir.
Who is without their tablets, please? Oh yes, oh yes. It's one of the consequences. It's one of the consequences. There are certain actions that carry consequences. It's one of the consequences. I'll just stop there. I'm sure I did not see any hands go up to my right. Not at all. Not at all. You are entitled to a tablet. we're trying to go electronic. Paperless. That's the international standard now, to go paperless. We are far behind, but we're trying to catch up with the rest of the world. Okay, apart from the electronic version, do you have any other version of the votes and procedures? Not at all? You have the hard copies. Okay, manage with that for today and let's see. Those with hard copies, please raise your hands so we can see whether we can proceed. With hard copies, I have one. Okay, try to share with your neighbor. Honorable Ekeke is here. He's not here yet.
Outside. I saw him outside. I saw him in the lamp.
He's got such a critical mind that I was going to use him as representing the rest of you who do not have. And you can rely on his wisdom to tell you whether it is right or not. But anyway, shall we proceed, please? I don't want us to keep you waiting for as long as I did yesterday. Although I should not be blamed for what happened yesterday, circumstances somehow conspired against us retiring early. We were here till 10 last night. I, in fact, empathized with the Minister of Finance. He was here till very late, and he's back with us very early this morning. Okay, shall we proceed, please? We shall start from page 5 to consider our votes and proceedings. Any amendments? Page 6. Seven is pretty straightforward. I can assure you of that. Page 8. Page 9. Ten. And the last page 11. Thank you. Can someone please move?
I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Any seconder? Thank you. All those in favor of the motion for adoption say aye. Aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Record of votes and proceedings for Thursday, 9th November 2023 has been adopted. announcement by Mr. Speaker.
Well, the only announcement I have is on a good note. We started right on time, 10 o'clock. And I want to commend all of you who were here on time, 10 o'clock. It's a good sign, a very good sign. And I hope we will keep it up. I'm sure my friend and brother there from Kwenadugu must have been pleased this morning. Very good. Exactly. As I said yesterday, two things cannot wait: time and tide. They don't wait for anybody. And let us start measuring our progress by time. Let's value time. After all, those of us who have been overseas, we are enumerated by time. Whether it is the month, or the hours, or the minutes. But your remuneration comes always according to time. So let us try and imbibe that culture of respecting time. And when you do that, you see how rapid the development of this country will be. There is no magic to it. Even countries who are ahead of us in terms of development achieved it by respecting time and making sure they don't fiddle around, they do the real work, substantive work, when they are engaged in it. Nothing wrong in our emulating those good examples. The bad examples we should never encourage. And there are many bad examples out there that we should never allow to influence our culture, our way of doing things in this country. But the good ones, let's embrace and adopt and imbibe and be part of our culture. After all, cultural development is a process of cross-fertilization. We influence them, and they too influence us. That's the way the world is, and will continue to be. So I'm very, very impressed with today's attendance. You enabled us to start right on time. Let us maintain that record. I thank you all for ensuring that that happens. With that said, oh yes, I've just been reminded that our brother MPs from Ghana are still with us. May I invite all of them to please rise and be recognized. As I said the other time, they are here to study our business committee, how we do things here, so that if there are good aspects, they too can. I haven't finished.
No, sorry, side. Come on, boys, and then. Just one.
I can see that. And I cannot want people that I can see.
Yes. No, we don't sit. We sit over and I still will get it.
They can't read.
No, just to remind
All
you
the people are gone.
that our brothers from
What's in past?
Our brothers from the Parliament of Ghana are visiting us to come and study the way we conduct business in our business committee of Parliament and to learn from our own best practices. By the same token, we'll be to their Parliament to learn from their own best practices, and that's the way we do exchanges between parliaments of the community. We have a common tradition, a common heritage. So we learn from each other all the time. I think today is the last working day they are spending with us. And I hope their visit has been worthwhile. Anyway, they will tell us when we meet again this evening to bid them farewell at dinner. Good. They witnessed when our friends and brothers from the APC joined us, and they are now fortunate to witness a very special session of Parliament, and that is the reading of the national budget by the Minister of Finance. We hope you will be able to pick up one or two things that will be of benefit to them when they return back to Ghana. I enjoy a very special comradeship with my brother Speaker from Ghana, Speaker Bagin. We were together in Angola recently, along with the Senate President of Nigeria, the Angolan Speaker, and the Speaker of South Africa. In fact, between myself, Ghana, South Africa, and Nigeria, we led the campaign for the Speaker of Tanzania, Speaker Axon, who eventually became elected as the first woman president of the IPU in the entire history of the IPU. So we share certain affinities with Ghana and those other countries. And it is my wish to continue to strengthen the excellent relations that we share with those partners. So don't be surprised if you begin to see many more parliaments coming to us to see how we do things here. So it's always important that we do the best, so that when they come to learn from us, they do not learn the ugly, but the best, to take back to their own parliament. With that said, let's get on with the day's business.
Laying of papers, the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker.
Hold on a minute. I'm still getting noise coming from the gallery. Hello? I can still hear noises. Sergeant at Arms, yes, sir. Do your duty, please. Thank you, sir. Good news for the honorable members to my left. By Tuesday, you'll be getting your tablets.
I hope the Minister of Finance will have another good news for our teachers. For our teachers in this country. I'm sure there will be good news for them today. Now, Minister.
Okay, I think we've got some quiet now from the galleries. Let me take this opportunity. Let's speak my language now. Do ya una wake up for campus? It's very special occasion. I welcome una to Parliament. But una not to parliamentarians, so una not visitors. Una we don't elect una parliamentarians and the citizens. If una come with respect, una come with good manners. You there for listen, not for take part. You what they happen down. So they are the big una. Let one noise not come out from the galleries anymore. Otherwise, I will order let them clear. Don't man. I'm sure now very few no more they make noise. The vast majority of them no they make any noise. So then one day way if you neighbor they make noise, tell and say, let it not be the source of you drive one common at the gallery. Let it quiet. Thank you. Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, with your leave, I beg to lay on the table of this honorable House the following paper. The Fiscal Strategy Statement, FSS, for fiscal year 2024 to 2028 in fulfillment of the Section 21 and 23 of Public Financial Management Act 2016.
Bill, the Appropriation Act 2024, Introduction and First Reading, the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I move that the bill entitled the Appropriation Act 2024 be read the first time. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I rise to move that the bill entitled the Appropriation Act being an act to authorize expenditure from the Consolidated Revenue Fund for the services of Sierra Leone for 2024 be read the first time. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the last 2 years have been very challenging for policymakers all over the world, more so in low-income countries, including Sierra Leone, where development needs are very high in the midst of limited fiscal space and high vulnerability to external shocks. The external environment has not been favorable as the recovery of the global economy is losing momentum due to slowdown of the Chinese economy, disruptions of energy and food markets caused by the Russia-Ukraine crisis, and the impact of tighter monetary policies to fight global inflation. The situation is being exacerbated by heightened geopolitical tensions, economic fragmentation, and climate change risks. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the October edition of the World Economic Outlook projected global economic growth to continue to slow down from 3.5% in 2022 to 3% in 2023 and to 2.9% in 2024. This was after the strong recovery of 6% in 2021. The growth in advanced economies is slowing down, especially in the euro area, which is more exposed to the Russian-Ukraine crisis. Economic activities in the euro area is projected to decelerate from 3.3% in 2022 to 0.7% in 2023 and 1.2% in 2024. While growth in emerging economies and developing countries is projected to be broadly stable in 2023 and 2024 at 4%, the Chinese economy, our major trading partner, is weakening due to problems in the property and real estate sector. Growth in sub-Saharan Africa is also expected to fall for the second year in a row to 3.3% in 2023 before returning to 4% in 2024, reflecting weak global economic growth, mounting debt levels, high inflation, and interest rate and exchange rate pressures. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, although global inflationary pressures are easing from record levels in 2022, inflation still remains relatively high. Global inflation is projected to fall from 8.7% in 2022 to 6.9% in 2023 and further to 5.8% in 2024. Despite this, commodity prices remain volatile, a major risk to downward trend in inflation. Global oil prices have been fluctuating with an increasing trend averaging around $94 per barrel from January to September in 2023. Repeated cuts in supplies by OPEC plus countries could see prices average around above 90% per barrel in 2023. Food prices remain elevated and could be further disrupted by an escalation of the war in Ukraine, inflicting greater hardship on many low-income countries, including Sierra Leone. Rice prices continue the upward trend, although throughout this year, averaging around $495 in January, and to $620 per metric ton in September 2023. Fortunately, iron ore prices have averaged around $120 per metric ton and are projected to stay elevated for the rest of the year, following floods in one of Brazil's biggest iron ore mines. The Speaker, honorable members, these adverse developments, global development, and general economic uncertainties have contributed to a difficult socio-economic situation in Sierra Leone, characterized by weak economic growth, limited fiscal space, high inflation, high debt burden, sharp depreciation of the leaves. These in turn have translated into high cost of living with adverse implications for food security in our country. In July this year, I presented a supplementary budget aimed at bringing back public finances to a sustainable path and maintaining the recovery from ongoing war in Ukraine and other related shocks. However, large debt service payments combined with high inflation and exchange rate pressures on the budget have narrowed the policy choices and presented difficult policy trade-offs. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, despite the difficult external environment, our program with the International Monetary Fund remains on track. The delayed 6th and 7th review of the extended credit facility were jointly approved by the IMF Executive Board in June 2023, triggering the disbursement of $20 million. Despite the limited fiscal space, we continue to support the free quality education program and infrastructure development, including the completion of key roads. We made progress on fiscal consolidation by instilling fiscal discipline in the management of public expenditures, which enabled us to fulfill 2 out of 3 quantitative performance criteria for the 8th review of the extended credit facility of the IMF. We also implemented all required actions and structural benchmarks. This improved program performance has paved the way for the staff level agreement on the conclusion of the 8th review, which is now awaiting approval by the IMF Executive Board late November 2023. The successful completion of the 8th review will trigger the immediate disbursement of $20 million and commencement of discussions for a successor program with the IMF in 2024. With support from the World Bank, we also implemented wide-ranging sectoral reforms in lands, labor, education, mining, public procurement, revenue administration, and digitalization. These and many more will lay the foundation for sustainable resilience and inclusive growth in the medium term. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, it is however disheartening to report that despite these efforts, successive and repeated shocks have exposed the underlying vulnerabilities of our food supply systems to the volatility of global food market. The ensuing high cost of living has pushed several households into food insecurity. This is untenable and therefore demands unprecedented and innovative solutions. Against the backdrop of global economic uncertainty, high cost of living and food insecurity, there is an urgent need to restore macroeconomic stability while protecting the poor and vulnerable. Hence the theme of the 2024 government budget. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, before elaborating on the government policy priorities and strategies for addressing the above-mentioned challenges, please allow me to provide a brief review of the domestic macroeconomic development and budgetary performance for 2023, as well as the medium-term outlook of our economy. Macroeconomic developments and budgetary performance in 2023 and outlook. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the macroeconomic development in 2023. After recovering strongly from COVID-19 pandemic with a growth of 4.1% in 2021, the Sierra Leone economy slowed down to 3.5% growth in 2022. The economy is projected to grow moderately by 2.7% in 2023. The uncertain global economic environment, coupled with high food and energy prices, continue to weigh on economic growth in 2023. Inflationary pressures persisted throughout 2023, reflecting imported inflation, domestic food supply shocks, adjustments in fuel prices, and continuous depreciation of the exchange rate. Inflation surged to 54.5% in September, from 37.1% in December 2022. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, total value of exports increased by 16% to $659.2 million during the first half of 2023, relative to the same period in 2022. Of this, mineral exports amount to $584.7 million, with iron ore exports increasing by 54% to $391 million. The total import bill decreased marginally by 0.4% to $968.6 million in the first half of 2023, relative to the same period in 2022. The value of rice and petroleum imports amounted to $92 million and $305.7 million respectively. The combined value of rice and petroleum imports accounted for 41% of total import bill for the period under review. Trade deficit narrowed significantly to $309.4 million in the first half of 2023 from $404.9 million in the corresponding period of 2022, reflecting mainly the strong growth in mineral exports. Our gross international reserves of the Central Bank of the Bank of Sierra Leone amounted to $432 million, equivalent to 3 months of imports cover as at end October 2023. The depreciation of the leones moderated to 17% between January and October 2023, compared to 39.1% in 2022. Policy actions by the Bank of Sierra Leone to stabilize the exchange rate include the removal of administrative barriers to foreign exchange markets, in the foreign exchange market, the amendment of the Bank of Sierra Leone Act 2019 to permit the use of currencies other than the leone in selected transactions in Sierra Leone, and the announcement effect of the decision to permit lending in foreign currency by commercial banks on a case-by-case basis. The stock of public debt increased slightly by 5.5% to 53.9 billion euros as at end June, or 51.1 billion euros as at end December 2022. Domestic debt increased by 13% to 18.2 billion euros, while foreign debt increased marginally by 0.2% to 35.7 billion euros as at end June 2023. The increase in domestic debt was driven mainly by increased domestic borrowing. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the budgetary performance in 2023. Total domestic revenue collected during the January to June 2023 amounted to 44.6 billion euros, which is 5.9% of GDP, recording a shortfall of 166.4 million euros. The underperformance in income tax, goods and services tax, and customs and excise duty contributed to the shortfall. This was due to election-related uncertainty, weak economic activities, and delay in fuel pump price adjustments. The total domestic revenue will amount to 10.6 billion euros, which is 13.1% of GDP by the end of the year. The total grants received from development partners amounted to 1.1 billion, corresponding wholly project grants. The World Bank is expected to disburse $65 million as budget support in December. The total grants will reach 3.7 billion, which is 4.7% of GDP in 2023. The Speaker, honorable members, total expenditure and net lending from January to June amounted to 9.7 billion, 12.3% of GDP, and was within budget amounts. The savings of 38 million was due to lower than budgeted wages and salaries, interest payments and subsidies and transfer, which more than offset overruns in domestic capital expenditures. Higher inflation and exchange rate depreciation contributed to the overrun in domestic capital expenditure. The total net lending, expenditure and net lending are projected to amount to 18.3 billion, which is 23.3% of GDP by the end of the year. Mr. Speaker, the overall deficit, budget deficit excluding grant, is estimated at 6.4% of GDP. However, including grants, the deficit including grant is estimated at 5.1% at the end of June 2023. This deficit was financed mainly by borrowing from the domestic banking system. The medium-term economic outlook. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the Sierra Leone economy is expected to remain resilient over the medium term. Growth is projected to increase from 4.7% in 2024 and 5.2% in 2025, driven by increased investment in agriculture, mining, and continued recovery in the service sector. Inflation is expected to ease to 23% by the end of 2024 and further decline over the medium term, following tight monetary policy stance by the central bank and prudent fiscal policy stance by the Ministry of Finance. The current account deficit is projected to shrink to 4.2% in 2024 and further 2.9% in 2025 as our trade deficit narrows. Our official reserves, foreign exchange reserves, are programmed to stay above 3 months of import cover in the medium term, supported by official inflows and also private transfers. The exchange rate is expected to depreciate by a difference between inflation in Sierra Leone and that of our major trading partners. And given the projected decline in inflation, depreciation of the yuan is expected to moderate in 2024 and over the medium term. However, the outlook of the economy is susceptible, I must say, to several significant downside risks. These include spillovers from ongoing geopolitical tension, economic fragmentation, escalation of the Russian-Ukraine crisis, prolonged weakening of the Chinese economy, potential collapse of prices of our key commodities, our export commodities, as well as continuous depreciation of the exchange rate, and also any decline in international donor support. They pose additional challenges for the outlook. The policy priorities of the 2024 budget. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the difficult and uncertain global economic environment, spillovers to our economy, combined with policy slippages, have translated into a challenging macroeconomic situation, which in turn have led to an increase in cost of living, as earlier noted. Taking this development into consideration, the 2024 budget will seek to, 1, improve the management of public finances and enhance the effectiveness of monetary and exchange rate policies, to reduce inflation, stabilize the exchange rate, to lower the cost of living, thereby protecting the poor and vulnerable people. 2, support the implementation of feed saloon programs to improve agricultural productivity for food self-sufficiency. 3, expand social safety net to cushion the impact and multiple shocks on the poor and vulnerable. 4, consolidate human capital development intervention in education and health in order to improve the quality of life of people, especially women, children, and the youth. 5, continue to invest in infrastructure and technology to improve the competitiveness of the economy and create employment opportunities. And 6, support and promote private sector development for sustainable economic growth and job creation. 7, support the implementation of appropriate climate adaptation and mitigation measures to minimize the impact of climate change on livelihoods. And 8, support the revamping of our public administration to improve the efficiency of public service. The strategies for achieving the 2024 budget policy priorities. 1, improving the management of public finances to stabilize the economy. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, there is an urgent need to strike an appropriate balance between revenue efforts and expenditure management to reduce the budget deficit and government borrowing from the banking system, thereby helping to arrest the rate of exchange rate depreciation and lower inflation. In addition to enhanced fiscal discipline, enhanced fiscal discipline will create the fiscal space needed to increase spending on government priorities. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, to achieve this balance requires deliberate efforts to intensify domestic revenue collection and prudent management and control of public expenditures. Intensifying domestic revenue mobilization. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the development needs of Sierra Leone are huge and need to be consciously addressed if we are to make progress in improving the competitiveness of the economy and reduce poverty. However, attempts to address these needs in a sustainable manner are severely constrained by the limited fiscal space. As part of the effort to expand the fiscal space, government prepared a medium-term revenue strategy approved by Cabinet in April 2023. The implementation of the medium-term revenue strategy commenced with the Finance Act 2023, which was ratified by this Honorable Noble House in July 2023. In 2024, the government will continue with the implementation of tax policies and revenue administration measures articulated in the medium-term revenue strategy. Accordingly, government will implement the following tax policy measures in 2024 as espoused in the 2024 Finance Act, laid, debated, and approved by this noble House on November 9, 2023. 1. Harmonization of the final withholding tax rate for capital income comprising dividend, interest, and royalties at the rate of 15%. Rental income will remain at 10%, and capital gains at tax at 25%. 2. Adjusting the goods and services tax registration threshold to 500,000 millions from 100,000 millions. 3. Increase the specific excise duty on petroleum products to a fixed rate at 2 leons 40 cents per litre for diesel and 2 leons 80 cents per litre for gasoline to internalize the external cost of fuel. This implies that the excise duty rate will no longer be used as an adjuster for the purpose of subsidizing fuel prices. 4. Imposing a specific excise tax on plastic at the rate of 16 leons per kilogram to protect the environment. 5. Impose an excise tax on gambling and casino services at a rate of 10% of net betting revenues. 6. Restoring import duties on imported rice at a rate of 5% in 2024 to be increased to 10% in 2025 to support local production of rice. The proceeds of this tax will be ring-fenced in the Agricultural Development Fund and used to support the feed salon program. 7. Restoring import duties on iron rod at 10% from the current rate of 5%, and on imported cement at 20% from 10% to encourage domestic production of these imported commodities. The additional amount collected will be deposited into the Infrastructure Development Fund to support the implementation of infrastructure projects in the country. 8. Restoring import duties on cooking gas at 5% to encourage domestic production. 9. Impose an abhorrent export royalty on timber exports based on value of timber products in addition to the current fixed rate charge of $3,000 per container retained as minimum. And 10. Imposing an education levy of 1% of the value of all contracts for the supply of goods, services, and works as final withholding tax to support investment and predictable financing in the education sector. Innovative financing to maximize revenues on the management of our mineral resource wealth. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I am pleased to report to this noble House that government through the Sierra Leone Mines and Mineral Development Management Corporation has established a special purpose vehicle, the Mineral Wealth Fund, Sierra Leone Limited, which will manage the commercial and business interests of the government in the mining sector. This will ensure the efficient management of our mineral resources to maximize revenue from the mineral sector. Under these arrangements, government will no longer depend on the 3%, only on the 3% royalty levied on mineral exports, but will also collect revenues on the income earned by the special purpose vehicle through its investment in key mining projects across the country. The revenue generated by the corporation will be deposited into the Transformational Development Fund for the financing of transformational projects in accordance with Part 4, Section 77 to 82 of the Public Financial Management Act of 2016. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in tandem with the implementation of ongoing policies, the National Revenue Authority will implement the following revenue administration measures aimed at strengthening tax compliance. 1. Expand the annual NRA audit plan to cover a high proportion of large taxpayers, including those in the extractive industry. 2. Set up and operationalize the courts to deal with tax defaulters and other revenue offenses. 3. Extend the block registration of businesses to all parts of the country. And 4. Establish an electronic single window for clients of dutiable goods. 5. Impose fines and penalties on shipping agencies that fail to approve manifest 48 hours before their arrival of vessels. 6. Strengthen custom valuation through acquisition of a price reference data database to support the evaluation module in their secure workgroup system. 7, fully deploying and exploiting the benefits of ITAS and Asecura and strengthening the collection of non-tax revenues through rolling out the mobile payment application to all revenue collecting NDAs nationwide. Revenue mobilization by local councils. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government will continue to implement reforms that will enhance local revenue mobilization to reduce the over-reliance of local councils on central government for financing local priorities. To this end, a new fiscal decentralization policy is being prepared and will be completed in 2024, paving the way for innovative and sustainable financing strategy for local development. Expenditure control and management. Speaker, honorable members, government remains committed to strengthening public expenditure management to create a fiscal space for priority spending. This involves improving the sustainability of the wage bill, rationalizing expenditure on goods and services, strengthening the financial sustainability of state-owned utility companies, improving the management of capital expenditure, ensuring prudent management of public debt, improving sustainability of the government wage bill. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, to improve the sustainability of the wage bill, government is pursuing the following actions. 1, develop the medium-term wage bill management strategy that will introduce additional reforms to strengthen payroll management. 2, operationalize the Wages and Compensation Commission following the enactment of the Wages and Compensation Commission Act in April 2023. The process of appointing an chief executive officer, a deputy chief executive officer, and the chairman of the board commenced in September 2023 and will be completed by the end of the year. 3, carrying out a biometric verification exercise for teachers and health workers. The United Kingdom Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, has committed to provide financial and technical support for biometric verification of teachers, while the European Union has indicated support for the verification of the health sector payroll. 4, institute workforce planning for major payroll categories to improve the control relating to new recruits. Workforce quotas will be set for major categories of payroll, and this will be effectively monitored during the execution of the budget. 5, institute moratorium on salary adjustments to all subvented agencies in 2024, pending operationalization of the Wages and Compensation Commission. The requests for salary adjustment received from subvented agencies have not been uniform, thus awarding these salaries increases will further exacerbate the wage disparities in the public sector. And then 6th, conduct separate annual payroll budget discussions for all ministries, departments, and agencies. This is an opportunity for the Ministry of Finance to adequately ascertain payroll requests required by all MDAs. It will also improve payroll budgeting and minimize the persistent in-year requests for recruitments and salary adjustments received during the budget execution. Rationalizing recurrent and domestic capital expenditures. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government will continue with efforts to rationalize non-salary recurrent expenditures and improve the management of capital projects, especially those funded by the government, to improve the credibility of the budget. The following actions will be implemented in 2024. 1, implement baseline budgeting with technical assistance from the IMF to improve budget planning and execution. 2, extend the coverage of the ICNIS to additional 20 MDAs, including subvented agencies, bringing the total to 98 MDAs in 2024. This is to ensure that majority of government expenditure are processed through the ICNIS and avoid overspending and accumulation of arrears. 3, continue to strengthen cash management by ensuring that cash flow forecasting approved by the Cash Management Committee form the basis of quarterly budget allocation to MDAs to avoid accumulation of arrears. And 4, implement a block system of allocation of non-contractual expenditures. In order to ensure that spending by MDAs is within the budget limits, allocation for administrative and operating spending expenses such as fuel, travel, office and general supplies will be separated from allocation for contractual obligations. Allocation for administrative expenses will be made in bulk and deposited into MDA's departmental accounts at the Bank of Sierra Leone. Allocation relating to payment for contractors will be processed and paid directly to the accounts of contractors or suppliers of goods, services, and works. The Ministry of Finance will continue to capacity budget officers and budget committees in MDAs to support implementation of the system. So, Speaker, honorable members, government is also working towards improving the financial sustainability of state-owned enterprises, especially the Electricity Distribution and Supply Authority, by boosting its revenue collection potential from regular adjustment of tariffs to reflect, through regular adjustment of electricity tariffs, to reflect the cost of electricity generation and transmission. This will eliminate subsidies and reduce the pressure on the budget. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government is committed to strengthening the formulation and execution of public investment program, also known as capital budget. With support from the World Bank, government will develop a public investment management information system. The system will provide a platform for projects to be developed in line with the public investment management cycle. It will also provide support efficient public investment management for both central government and local government. The Ministry of Planning and Economic Development will also issue policy guidelines on management of PIPs. Improving the sustainability of public debt. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, debt service payments account for an average of 25% of domestic revenue, thereby reducing the resources available for spending on government priority programs. In addition to the fiscal consolidation measures mentioned in the foregoing paragraph, government will pursue the following actions to improve the sustainability of public debt and create fiscal space to scale up spending on the big five game changes. 1. Continue to introduce medium to long-term bonds to extend average maturity in line with updated medium-term debt strategy. 2. Limit external borrowing in line with program ceilings agreed with development partners. Continue to seek grant financing and borrowing highly concessional loans to finance investment in key sectors of the economy, especially infrastructure. And 4. Continue to explore non-debt creating financing models such as public-private partnerships supported through analysis of potential fiscal risks. 4. Implement a medium-term debt strategy every year to guide the public debt management. Implement an updated arrears clearance strategy. Continue to improve debt reporting and transparency through regular publication of debt and contingent liabilities to the SOE. 8. Review the Debt Management Act to further strengthen debt management. 9. Deploy a contract profiling tool for the effective management of contracts with support from the African Development Bank. The West African Monetary Institute, in collaboration with the West African Institute of Financial and Economic Management, YFEM, is providing technical assistance in the development of the domestic debt market. This is expected to increase the capacity of domestic investors to take up more domestic debt with longer maturities. Monetary and exchange rate policies. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the Bank of Sierra Leone is committed to taking decisive actions to bring inflation down and stabilize the exchange rate. To achieve this, the Bank of Sierra Leone will sustain the tight monetary policy stance by continuing to raise monetary policy rates to send strong signal of its intention to bring down inflation. 2. Develop a framework to introduce Bank of Sierra Leone's own instruments to support effective liquidity management operation. And 3. Improve the communication to explain monetary policy decisions and action necessary to align inflationary expectations with policy objectives. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in addition to tightening monetary policy to lower inflation, the central bank will take the following actions to stabilize the exchange rate. Continue to remove restrictions on foreign exchange transactions and simplify the rules of interbank foreign exchange markets. 2. With effect from January 2024, the Bank of Sierra Leone, in collaboration with the relevant regulatory agencies, will enforce the requirement to repatriate a minimum of 30% of export value into the banking system by exporters of minerals, agricultural, fisheries, forestry, and forestry products. The Bank of Sierra Leone will recommend the purchase of gold to build foreign exchange reserves. 4. The Bank of Sierra Leone will monitor compliance with its directive to offshore foreign exchange brokers to trade donor funds for development projects in Sierra Leone at the daily reference market rate as the mid rate. And 5, government will require all disbursements for donor-funded projects to be channeled through the Bank of Sierra Leone. The Bank of Sierra Leone will convert these funds at the reference market rate on the value date of the transaction. The operational accounts of projects will be held at respective commercial banks. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, feed salon, boosting agriculture and production and productivity to achieve food self-sufficiency. This is the second strategy for attaining the objectives of the 2024 budget. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, food accounts for 25% of our total import bills. The value of rice imports average 200 million per year. As the global price of food, including rice, continues its upward trend, the food import bill will continue to increase, posing threats to food security, depletion of foreign exchange reserves, and further weakening of the leones. With the increasing number of food insecure households, there is urgent need to strengthen our food systems to achieve food self-sufficiency. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, recognizing this untenable situation, His Excellency Brigadier Retired Dr. Julius Madabio declared Feed Salon as the flagship program of his government for the next 5 years. The goal of the Feed Salon program is to establish a framework involving several interventions of delivering food self-sufficiency within the shortest possible time. The key objective of the program are as follows. 1, reduce the importation of food imports items, including our staple rice. 2, reduce hunger and malnutrition. 3, create job opportunities, especially for the youths. Build resilience to climate change and food price shocks. And 5, boost export earnings from agriculture. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, development of agroecological zones. To achieve these objectives, government has identified 6 agroecological zones for rice production. These include Somabom in Bump, Bondapi in Pujan, Komrabai Mamila in Tonkolili district, Senyong in Moyamba district, Rombe Mambolo Kichom in Potloko and Kambia district, and Rolako in Bombali district. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, 3 of these zones have been grouped into 2 clusters, Somabom and Bondapi in Bons and Pujan district, and Rombe Mambolo Kichom in Kambia and Potloko districts. The 2024 budget will focus on developing these clusters into agro-industrial zones and processing centers with strong private sector participation. The ecologies constitute both riverine and mangrove swamps with available water to support multiple cropping in a year. These 2 clusters combined have the potential to cultivate for the cultivation of 34,000 hectares of irrigated and unirrigated rice fields with a yield potential of 3 to 4 metric tons per hectare compared to the current yield of 1.8 to 2 metric tons per hectare. In 2024, an estimated 11,000 hectares of irrigated fields will be developed for cultivation with the possibility of increasing the acreage in subsequent years and expansion to other ecological zones. So, Speaker, honorable members, government will de-risk private investment in these ecological zones by investing in public infrastructure, including feeder roads leading to these zones, provision of electricity and irrigation systems. This will unlock private investment in rice production, aggregation, and processing in the zone. To consolidate private investment in the agricultural sector, government will support medium and large-scale farmers through policies and institutional reforms, including enhancing access to land, as well as ensuring a stable macroeconomic environment. Under the Feed Salon, sustaining support to smallholder farmers through e-voucher system. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government will continue to provide high-yielding, climate-resilient, disease-resistant seeds, fertilizers, and other agrochemicals and machine services to smallholder farmers through the e-voucher system to boost production and productivity of food crops. In this context, government will refine the e-voucher system to improve efficiency, transparency, and timely delivery of inputs to farmers. To this end, government will expand the digital registration of farmers with a view to categorizing them for better targeting. The provision of inputs will be complemented by robust extension services to enhance the farmer knowledge in correct and efficient use of inputs and encourage them to adopt modern technologies. Under OfficialSLTV, invest in agricultural research, innovation, and extension services. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government will scale up investment in agricultural research, innovation, and extension systems to promote climate-smart agriculture and agricultural technologies for producing high-yield variety of seeds to boost resilience against climate change. Enhancing access to agricultural finance. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government will promote access to various forms of agricultural finance, including affordable credit facility, agricultural insurance, minimum price guarantees, and matching grants to farmers. Government will also design special initiatives to help women afford affordable loans and agriculture and encourage rural youth to establish youth farms and agri-businesses. Promoting institutional feeding. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, to further stimulate domestic production and demand, government will promote institutional feeding program for schools, hospitals, correctional services, fire force, military, and police. From 2024, contracts for the supply of rice to this institution will be required to source at least 10% of the contract from locally produced rice. Institutions can self-produce, contract, or source locally produced and processed rice from the markets in Sierra Leone. This will increase the demand for locally produced items such as rice, thereby incentivizing our farmers to produce more. Improving productivity in the fisheries sector to support the feed salon. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the strategic objective of the fisheries sector will be to scale up production and processing of fisheries and other marine products to support feed salon program for food and nutrition security and create jobs and opportunities for youth while mobilizing resources to support the domestic revenue. To achieve this, government will implement the following actions in the fisheries sector. 1, review the Fisheries and Aquaculture Act of 2018 and accompanying regulation of 2019 to align with emerging issues of quota management regime to attract fisheries investments. And the Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Resources will sensitize fisheries operators on the provision of the Act and regulation. 2, increase the frequency of industrial fisheries patrol and surveillance per year to combat illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing activities. 3, accelerate the process of lifting the EU restriction on fish exports from Sierra Leone. 4, increase the frequency of community surveillance patrol for artisanal fisheries to 100 per year and implement the closed season for fishing trawlers to protect juvenile fishes and increase fish production. Also, 5, establish and support women and youth fish farmers group for construction and management of chicken fish farms nationwide and establish and support pilot school fish farming projects. A key strategy, the third strategy to deliver on for 2024 policies will be consolidating human capital development intervention. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, at the Africa Heads of State Human Capital Summit held in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania in July this year, His Excellency the President, Julius Maada Bio, made a renewed commitment to invest in people to ensure highly productive, inclusive, resilient economy. To this end, the government will continue to sustain its human capital interventions in education and health, primary and secondary education. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, to expand access and improve the quality of basic and secondary education, including universal access to all, for all learners. Government will, 1, sustain the free quality school education program by continuing to pay tuition, public exam fees, provide teaching and learning materials, gradually expand the school feeding program to support more children in government and government-assisted schools. 2, rehabilitate and construct additional secondary school and classrooms and equip the science laboratory. 3, construct, rehabilitate, furnish, and provide furniture to government boarding schools. 4, rehabilitate and construct school libraries in regional and district headquarter towns. 5, strengthen the implementation of integrated management information system, including deployment of digital and securitized data to provide unique ID for all learners. And 6, implement the credit scoring framework and code of conduct for teachers developed by the Teaching Service Commission as an incentive to improve teacher performance. Technical higher education. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, with the increasing number of pupils promoting to tertiary institutions or secondary institutions, we must position ourselves to effectively respond to the requirements of modern education that will equip students with the relevant skills to enable them to effectively participate in the labor market. To achieve this, government will operationalize the Cornell University of Science and Technology, provide modern teaching and learning materials for tertiary institutions, review the curriculum for teachers' education. Government will operationalize the Cornell University of Science and Technology, provide modern teaching and learning materials for tertiary institutions, review the curriculum for teachers' education, and implement the teacher practice policy in support of the free quality education program. We'll popularize the implementation of the education sector plan 2026. 5, develop and implement dual apprenticeship policy and scale up funding for the loan scheme, student loan scheme, to target more beneficiaries. Improving healthcare services. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, pursuing universal health coverage through access to quality and affordable healthcare is an important component of government's human capital agenda. Over the past years, government has increased budgetary spending to health sector and expanded primary health facilities in the country. As a result, health outcomes have improved. For example, life expectancy increased from 53 years in 2017 to 61 years in 2023, while the maternal mortality ratio of 443 per 100,000 births is lower than the sub-Saharan Africa average of 536. This result manifests the strides that government is making to better the lives of citizens. And to further improve the delivery of healthcare services, government will continue to support the free healthcare initiative for under 5 pregnant women and lactating mothers, to scale up and sustain the provision of maternal, child and adolescent health services and expand sexuality education and family planning services. 3, support ongoing rehabilitation and expansion of secondary and tertiary hospitals and commence new hospital projects in Karene, Moyamba, Pujang, Kono, and Zini. 4, complete the protocol emergency hospital. 5, complete the construction and operationalization of the Lumley Pediatric Hospital. 6, complete the ongoing construction of 8 peripheral health units across the country. 7, operationalize the public health agency. 8, expand health service delivery through mobile clinics and launch the construction of the Cancer Diagnostic Treatment Center. Mitigating the impact of multiple shocks on the poor and vulnerable will be a key strategy to deliver on the policies for 2024 budget. Our safety net programs. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, against the background of a high cost of living that has put several thousands of people into food insecurity, government recognizes the compelling need for targeted social safety nets. In this regard, government is working with development partners including the World Bank, European Union, Islamic Development Bank, through the National Commission for Social Action, NACSA, to provide much needed support to the poor and vulnerable households across the country. Government is also implementing various social safety net programs in other MDAs, including the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, School Education, Social Welfare, Gender and Children Affairs, Health, Sanitation, and Youth Affairs. Scaling up cash transfer to the extremely poor. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government will enhance the ongoing cash transfer program implemented by NACSA. With support from the World Bank funded productive social safety nets and youth employment projects, NACSA has already commenced the provision of emergency cash transfer to 35,000 beneficiaries. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, under this project, NACSA will continue to provide cash transfer to 15,000 extremely poor households with priority given to female beneficiaries. The project will also support 45,000 households of persons with disability, and in addition, the project will support 6,000 extremely poor households in 11 districts, including Kailan, Bujang, Bons, Moyamba, Kambia, Karene, Falaba, Konadubu, Kono, Tonkolili, and Western Area Rural Districts, who had previously benefited from the safety net project. These beneficiaries will receive an economic inclusion package of $400 per household. The project will also provide immediate employment for 7,000 youths in rural areas, 6,000 youths in urban areas. At least 50% of all youth supported will be female, and 15% will be persons with disability. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, under the government-funded Sierra Leone Disability Project, NACSA will provide micro grants to 400 groups of persons with disability and will work with households that have disabled persons to establish at least 1,000 sustainable livelihoods nationwide. The targeted household will benefit from capacity building to improve financial literacy, and the intervention will also support children affected by disability, focusing on increasing access to education and nutrition. Labor-intensive public works. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, under the government contribution to the community-driven development project and the rapid community development initiative RACODI, NACSA will provide short-term employment to 15,000 youths in 2024 through the construction and rehabilitation of community school health and vocational centers and training stores. Support to micro-enterprise groups and self-affinity groups. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government will support, with support from the Islamic Development Bank, through NACSA, will launch the Islamic Microfinance Program targeting 400 self-affinity groups and 320 micro-enterprise groups with a total of 10,800 beneficiaries to increase access to finance for agriculture, food systems, and food systems development. NACSA will also support construction of 2 community-managed regional resource centers in Moyamba and Podoko to serve as planning centers for agricultural activities, and 3 model markets in Sembeon, Bradford, Malvang to support agro-processing and marketing. Climate change mitigation for poor and vulnerable farmers in rural communities. The Speaker, honorable members, mitigating the impact of climate change is critical for rural farming groups nationwide. In this regard, government is funding a project on renewable energy for productive use, anchored largely on integrated water and energy management for food production. This intervention will directly benefit 28,500 poor and vulnerable women and young farmers living near pole solar mini-grid locations across the country. The project will establish solar-powered irrigation plots, greenhouses, and aquaculture ponds, and build capacity of local farmers in climate-smart food production. School feeding. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government will sustain school feeding programs to encourage enrollment and retention. In 2023-2024 school year, an estimated 800,000 school children will benefit from school feeding program for 180 days at a cost of $7 million per child. The program will cover an additional 100,000 school children each year in the subsequent school years. In addition, the World Bank, under the Crisis Response Mission, is also supporting school feeding covering 114,000 children in 3 districts, Bond, Kenema, and Karina districts. Public transportation. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, to further demonstrate government commitment to ameliorating the transport constraints on the population, government, through the Ministry of Transport and Aviation, will procure 100 buses in 2024. The fleet will provide daily carrying capacity of 46,000 passengers within the Western area. The 50-seater buses will be managed by private sector operators with fares expected to be below market rate. The free healthcare initiative, Mr. Speaker, With support from development partner, government will continue to implement free healthcare initiatives to support the achievements made in reducing child and maternal mortality. The program will also continue to reduce out-of-pocket expenses for primary medical care for under 5s, pregnant women, and lactating mothers. The MUNAPA financing scheme, microfinancing scheme, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the lack of access to capital has been identified as by various studies as one of the key elements to the growth of small and medium-sized enterprises. Recognizing the important role of small, medium enterprises in job creation and growth of the economy, government established the MUNAPA Fund in 2019 with an initial capital of 30 million to enhance access to affordable capital for small, medium enterprises. In 2024, government will provide additional capital to expand the outreach of the fund to support new businesses, particularly women-owned, to promote financial inclusion, job creation, job opportunities, and inclusive growth. Salary increase for civil servants in grades 1 to 6. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, civil servants in lower cadre suffer more from the increase in fuel, food, electricity prices. Unlike their counterparts in education, health, security, they have not received any salary increases since 2019. To enable them to cope with current high costs of basic electricity, government reviewed the salary of civil servants in grades 1 to 6 effective January 2024. The details will be announced in section 4B of this statement. Investing in infrastructure, technology, and innovation. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government recognizes the need to invest in critical infrastructure, including digital technologies, which remain a significant enabler of economic growth, development, and poverty reduction. Scaling up these investments is consistent with 3 specific sustainable development goals: water, sanitation, hygiene, that's SDG 6, energy, SDG 7, infrastructure and industrialization, SDG 9. In this context, government will undertake the following. In the road sector, government will support the foreign development partners. Support from the development partners will do the following. 1, complete the Bo Tikonko and Tagrin Lungi Conakry roads. This is in addition to the recently completed Hillside Bypass Road. 2, complete the ongoing construction of township roads in Freetown, Bo, Kenema, and Batalo. 3, accelerate the construction of the Tinkoko, Petema, Matru, John Road in support by Valia. Construct the Cambia, Tonkoliba, Kukuna, and Guinea border road. Continue to support ongoing construction of the Bandajuma, Puja, Mbonapi, Kabala, Falabak, Road, Sayama, Jala roads. We continue to support the development and construction of bridges, culverts along the Molakika and Bongoma, the stretch in the Bond Island, accelerate the ongoing construction of the Jedema, Matru, Manowa, Tompari rural bridges with support from the One Line, and continue the implementation of the 3rd phase of the Mano River Union Road Development and Transport Facilitation Project with support from the AFTV. In the energy sector, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in the energy sector, government will complete the electrification of 7 district towns, commence the rehabilitation of the Dodo Hydro Dam, install solar mini-grids in 20 new communities nationwide, extend the transmission and distribution lines to mining companies as part of the effort to improve financial sustainability of EDSA whilst reducing the operating cost of mining companies. We will install 40 megawatts of containerized solar power under the Regional Emergency Solar Power Intervention Respite and implement the Transformational Energy Access Project in Sierra Leone with support from the European Union. To improve access to water in several communities, government will complete the construction of water supply facilities in 6 district headquarter towns, complete the implementation of the Blama, Bandawa, and 6 villages water supply system. We will continue to support the ongoing implementation of the Lunge Port Municipality Water Supply Project. We will commence the construction of water supply system in Kamakwe, Mambolo Lokupu by the Sierra Leone Water Company. And then we'll commence the installation of solar-powered mini-grid for Bo Kapara, Kenema, and Makeni water supply systems. We'll undertake the drilling of 100 solar-powered boreholes in urban and rural communities with support from the Saudi Fund for Development. In the information sector and communication sector, in information and communication technology sector, government will accelerate implementation of the World Bank-funded digital transformation project. Supporting private sector development for job creation. Implementing business regulatory reforms. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, Sierra Leone is ready for business, and government is highly committed to improving the investment climate to attract private sector in agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, and renewable energy sector. In addition to ensuring a stable macro environment, enhancing access to finance, and improving basic infrastructure, government will accelerate implementation of the ongoing regulatory frameworks and reforms. In 2024, government will complete the review of the Companies Act 2009 and the Companies Amendments Act 2014. Government will also complete the establishment of the online business registration system and the automation of construction permits and digitization of property records. Building capacity of the medium-small enterprises. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, with support from the Sierra Leone Economic Diversification projects, government will, through small, medium enterprise development agencies, SMEDA, supports SMEs in financial resource, access to financial resources and capacity building for business development. Building on the support provided to 60 SMEs in 2022, an additional 60 were provided with financial and business environment support services during 2023, and this effort and this support will continue in 2024. The SMEs have also received matching grants totaling $2.1 million, and the project will also provide technical and financial assistance to 3 emerging providers of business development services and in 2 tertiary institutions to improve their capacity. Establishment of special economic zone. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in the quest for economic diversification, government has developed special economic zone policy to promote industrialization along key value chains to create jobs and position Sierra Leone as a destination of foreign direct investment. These economic zones will promote technology transfer, skills training, promote exports and generate foreign exchange earnings, facilitating inter-farm linkages and create employment. Government has therefore established a Koya industrial zone with beneficial tax and non-tax incentives to address market failures and binding constraints to attractive investments. Youth employment programs. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the program and projects highlighted so far in this statement will create immense job opportunities. To build on and expand these programs and these opportunities, government will continue to support youth employment initiatives such as the Youth in Fisheries, Youth in Agriculture, Life Skills Development Programs. For Youth in Fisheries, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government will implement interventions aimed at increasing access to livelihood opportunities for young people living in the coastal communities. The Youth in Fisheries program will provide jobs for 4,200 youth across 16 districts through the following interventions. 1. Construct, stock, and equip fish ponds in all districts. 2. Construct 100 fishing boats with ultra-modern access to it. This component will provide direct employment for 2,000 youths and indirect employment for 10,000 beneficiaries across 7 coastal districts, including Bond, Moyamba, Western Rural, Western Urban, Port Loko, Pujam, and Kambia. We will establish and support female-led marketing groups with skills in fish processing, reservation, and marketing, and provide cooling facilities and electricity supply for fish preservation. And provide startup capital for women engaged in fish value chain in 70 coastal communities. Youth in agriculture. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, you will recall that government had begun investing in chief of youth firms. This package has enabled youth cooperatives to engage in agribusiness along rice value chain. To further strengthen the capacity of youths in producing, processing, and marketing of rice at the chiefdom level, government will support the cultivation of 40 hectares of farmland across 192 chiefdoms, youth farms, thereby creating 28,000 direct employment opportunities. Construction of state-of-the-art farm settlements at Robinki, Tonkolili district that will serve as a practical training ground with integrated farming systems, recreation facilities, and hostels to make agriculture attractive to the youths. Will provide capacity building on agronomic practices, tractor and power tiller operations, manure construction, and training in livestock and poultry development. Life skills development. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, to ensure that our socially and economically deprived youths they are included in the national agenda for job creation, the government will expand its support to the car wash services as a viable employment creating business that will increase their income and make them self-reliant. Government will also support youth in commercial transportation by procuring 100 fully licensed tricycles and motorbikes. Serial training will be provided to 5,000 youths on entrepreneurship and business development. Financial governance is another critical area that will pay attention to, improving financial governance. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government remains committed to improving governance and enhancing transparency and accountability in the management of public resources. In addition, in this regard, the Audit Service Act 2014 was amended to strengthen the budgetary autonomy of the Audit Service Sierra Leone. Furthermore, the Ministry of Finance developed a manual of standard operating procedures for the follow-up of audit recommendations. Government amended the Public Financial Management Act 2016 to make the SOP legally binding. Government will roll out an automated web-based software to track implementation of audit recommendations. This application is capable of capturing audit findings and recommendations, storing, uploading documentary evidence, and producing summary reports for decision making. The Speaker, honorable members, the Audit Service Act 2014, the Public Financial Management Act 2016, and the amended Local Government Act 2022 will provide for the application of disallowance and surcharge by the Auditor General. Disallowance and surcharges are constitutional or legislative mechanisms that empower the Auditor General to sanction public officials for illegally expending or mismanaging public funds. However, the legislative provisions on disallowance and surcharge have remained dormant for a long time owing to the absence of regulation guiding their implementation. This has constrained the ability of the Auditor General to sanction public officials for the mismanagement of illegal expenses of public funds. To address the situation, the Audit Service Sierra Leone is being supported to formulate the regulation providing the reactivation of disallowance and surcharge application and ancillary matters to ensure the effective application of the provision. Enhancing transparency in public procurement. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, effective public procurement systems remain a critical area for improving the delivery of basic services to the citizens of Sierra Leone. Preparations for the introduction of e-procurement is at an advanced stage, and the e-procurement system will allow for the real-time submission of bids and facilitate display of procurement data, including contract awards, suppliers, and contract costs, using open contracting data standards. This platform will be rolled out and mainstream in all MDAs to facilitate monitoring and evaluation of procurement activities. The National Public Procurement Authority will embark on effective contracting, contract monitoring, and implementation supervision. Improving governance and state-owned enterprises. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government is taking actions to improve the governance of our state-owned enterprises to strengthen not only their finances, but also, more importantly, quality of service delivery. The Ministry of Finance will support from the World Bank and in collaboration with the National Commission for Privatization and other relevant MDAs, carried out a comprehensive diagnostic assessment of corporate governance of all SOEs in the country, which culminated into the formulation of an SOE governance policy. Building on the SOE governance policy, Cabinet has approved an SOE governance bill And the goal is to bolster, which will be tabled, has been tabled in Parliament. The goal is to bolster, which has been brought to Parliament. The goal is to bolster the governance framework, as this will have a profound impact on the performance of SOEs and the potential involvement of private sector. The bill, upon becoming law, will lead to the establishment of a new entity with a defined mission and clear role and responsibility of the stakeholders involved in governance and oversight of state-owned enterprises. Addressing climate change and risk and climate financing. The Speaker, honorable members, climate change poses a real threat to our livelihood and therefore requires collective efforts to adapt to and mitigate its impact on our environment. As part of these efforts, government will therefore take the following actions in 2024. 1. Implement third phase of tree planting project by planting the remaining 2.2 million trees in addition to the 2.8 million trees already planted during the first and second phase of the project. With the support from the FAO, government will develop National Forestry Inventory of Sierra Leone to update the inventory developed in 1975. The updated inventory will provide Sierra Leone with a data methodology and capacity to measure, report, and verify its natural resources and use, and land use changes at the national levels of national level and protected areas. The project will also build capacity for the preparation of Sierra Leone forest reference levels, and this will enable Sierra Leone to comply with international climate financing requirements. 3. Implement the sustainable and integrated land management of the Western Area Peninsula Forest National Park to protect globally significant biodiversity, safeguard ecosystem services, and discourage land degradation activities. 4. Develop a domestic measurement, reporting, and verification framework for effective monitoring and reporting on climate action, and commence the development of Sierra Leone's first biannual transparency report consistent with the Paris Agreement on global responses to the threat of climate change. Speaker, honorable members, the Ministry of Finance recognizes that undertaking the necessary investments to adapt to and mitigate the impact of climate change requires substantial resources. For example, transitioning to cleaner energy, introducing climate-smart agriculture, and building resilience in infrastructure requires not only sound planning, but also significant financial commitments. Speaker, honorable members, the Ministry of Finance, through its recently established climate finance unit, will coordinate and facilitate mobilization of international public and private climate finance to complement domestic resources in the fight against climate change. The ministry will therefore collaborate with the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change to develop policy framework regulations relating to climate finance, and to this end in 2024, these two ministries will support with development partners will undertake the following action. Develop climate finance strategy, develop a carbon market and non-market trade policy framework to facilitate Sierra Leone's participation in international carbon markets, which will complement climate finance mobilization efforts locally and internationally. And then we'll introduce climate budget targeting to track and trace government expenditure on climate change. This will provide evidence for the development partners on our commitment to fight climate change, and hopefully encourage them to provide additional financial and technical support and undertake climate-sensitive public investment management assessments, CPMA, with support from the IMF to inform government decisions on investing in resilient infrastructure. Revamping public administration. So, Speaker, honorable members, an efficient, accountable, and inclusive public service is vital for the successful implementation of policies, programs, and projects outlined in the budget statement and the medium-term National Development Plan, 2024 to 2030. This will be achieved through reviewing and deepening ongoing reforms and developing new ones with a focus on fostering our culture of professionalism, competencies, skills development to enhance the delivery of the public service. In this context, the government will undertake the following action. Review and harmonize policies, legal frameworks to develop and roll out non-standards aimed at addressing the current challenges associated with the human resource management practices. Develop public service competency framework, establish delivery units in selected ministry driving the Big Five agenda linked to the central delivery units in the presidency. Operationalize the Wages and Compensation Commission to facilitate processing of and reviewing and harmonizing wages and salaries in the public service, and carry out comprehensive mapping of public services in 2024 to support the restructuring and rationalization of staff and deployment of civil servants. The budget, 2024 budget, domestic revenue and grants. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, on the basis of the tax policy and administrative measures highlighted earlier and the expected recovery in economic activities, domestic revenue is expected to increase to 14.9 million, which is 14.8% of GDP in 2024. Income tax will contribute 5.4 billion, goods and services 3.5 billion, customs and excise duties 3.1 billion new loans, and royalties and mining licenses 856 million new loans, and fish royalties on fisheries 223 million new loans, parastatal 154 million new loans. Revenues from other department and agency will amount, and even including royalties on export timber, will amount to 1.7 billion. Total grants will to be disbursed by development partners are projected to amount to 5.9 billion, which is 5.8% of GDP. Expenditures, priorities, and budget allocation. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the priorities of the government for the next 5 years have been identified as the big five game changers, including feed salon, consolidating human capital development, youth employment scheme, revamping public administration, and investing in technology and infrastructure. The composition and allocation of government expenditure, both recurrent and capital, for the year 2024 reflects these priorities. As Speaker, honorable members, total expenditure and net lending for 2024 is projected at 23.5 billion, which is 23% of GDP. Of this, recurrent expenditure will amount to 16.5 billion, and capital expenditure at 7.1 billion. Foreign finance capital expenditure is projected at 4.3 billion, 4% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, wages and salaries. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government wage bill is projected to increase to 6.5 billion, 4.6% of GDP in 2024, from 5.3 billion, which is 6.7% of GDP in 2023. Of this, 385 billion is allocated to pensions and gratuities and other allowances. The contribution to Social Security Fund for the government workers will amount to 526 billion euros. The increase in nominal wage will provide the increase in the nominal wage bill provides the following. 1. Government commitment to a 45% increase in salary for teachers, which started in 2023, remains intact. Teachers will receive the second tranche of 15% in January 2024. Government will also recruit 2,000 additional teachers and reassess and promote 2,200 teachers effective September. Recruitment of 2,000 health workers, which is part of the delayed recruitment for 2021-2022 quotas, as follows. 1,000 teachers effective March 2024, and an additional 1,000 effective July 2024. Recruitment of 500 new employees by subvented agencies, including the newly established ones. Recruitment of additional 500 civil servants, including the newly established Ministry of Communication and Technology. Recruitment of 500 staff by tertiary educational institutions effective April 2024 as follows. Universities, 300 new recruits. Colleges, 100. Technical and vocational institutions, 100 staff. Recruitment of 700 military personnel, including 58 military health workers, effective July 2024. Recruitment of 1,000 new employees by Sierra Leone Correctional Services, effective July 2024. Recruitment of 200 new employees by Fire Force Authority, effective July 2024. And recruitment of 100 consultants in FY 2024. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in recent years, despite the tight fiscal space, government awarded salary increases to teachers, staff of tertiary educational institutions, and security forces. Government also awarded salary increases to health workers by maintaining the COVID allowances. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, however, the salary of civil servants have not been reviewed since 2019, as earlier noted. Therefore, the projected wage bill will also provide for adjustments in the wages and salaries of civil servants to partly compensate for the increase in cost of living. With effect from January 2024, the least paid civil servant will receive a take-home pay of 1,000 riyals. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, debt service payment. Total interest payments are projected at 4 billion euros in 2024. Of these, interest payments on domestic debt will amount to 3.8 billion and on external debt 319 million euros. Non-interest recurrent capital expenditure, feed salon, improving agricultural productivity for food security. Agriculture and food security. Mr. Speaker, honorable member, government is allocating a total of 1.1 billion to the agricultural sector, accounting for 7% of the total primary expenditure compared to 2.1% in 2023. Of this amount, 836 million euros is allocated from the domestic capital expenditure to feed salon program, of which 693 million is provided for the development and promotion of agroecological zones. This amount will support road improvement, generation and transmission of electricity and water construction, and construction of water supply and irrigation systems to the two agroecological areas. Government is also allocating 30 million for the provision of agricultural inputs and machineries to small farmers through the voucher system. The total allocation amounts also include 80 million from the recurring budget to support various departments in the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. An additional 10 million is provided to the ministry, to Sierra Leone, to SLARI, and the transfer to local council for the board functions in the agricultural sector will amount to 41.2 million euros. The sum of 85 million euros represents the wage bill of the Ministry of Agriculture and allied agencies. Development partners, including the World Bank, African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, IFAD, Badia, Indian Exim Bank, will disburse 1.6 billion to support the implementation of various projects in the agricultural sector, including the construction of Tompari, Batujong, Gendema, and Manoa rural villages. The fisheries and marine resources. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the sum of 23 million is allocated from the recurrent budget to the Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Resources in support of artisanal fishing and fish export activities. In addition to an amount of 28 million is allocated to support inland fishing and aquaculture, monitoring and surveillance, fish stock assessment, and women in fisheries. Transfer to local council for devolved function in the fisheries sector will amount to 4.3 million euros. Sum of 6.8 million will represent the wage bill of the fisheries ministry. Human capital development, education. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government is allocating an amount of 3 billion to the education sector, representing 20% of the total primary expenditure. Of this, an amount of 535.1 million is allocated for the domestic capital budget to support the free quality education. An amount of 486 is allocated to the Ministry of Basic Education for the expansion of boarding school, equipping laboratories in secondary school and supporting libraries. The sum of 189 million is allocated on the recurring budget to the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education, including 120 million as transferred to tertiary institution, 31 million grants in aid support, and 10 million is allocated to the student loan scheme. Grants to local council for the world function will amount to 40 million euros. The wage bill of tertiary educational institution will amount to 487 million, that teachers, and that of teachers will amount to 1 billion. Health. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government is allocating a total of 1.1 billion to the health sector, accounting for 7% of total primary expenditures. Of this amount, 133 is allocated for recurring spending budget of the ministry of health and sanitation, and 44.6 million for tertiary hospitals and ambulance services, 16 million for primary health care, and 8 million for reproductive and child health care. The sum of 85.3 million is allocated to NEMS, the NEMSA, the National Medical Supply Agency, and 60 million, of which 60.8 million is for the procurement of free healthcare drugs. And an amount of 10 million is allocated for the National Public Health Agency. Transfer to local council for devolved health function will amount to 27 million new euros. The capital budget for the sector will amount to 31 million to the Ministry of Health. 15 million is for the construction of the farmer-grade warehouse and ancillary facilities, and 10 million for the completion of the Protocol Emergency Hospital. Development partners, including the World Bank, ISDB, Badia, Creative Funds, will disburse 207 million to support the implementation of various projects in the sector. The sum of 776 million is also allocated for wages and salaries in the sector. Social protection. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government recognizes the critical importance of safety net. And the sum of 86 million is allocated from the recurring budget to support this NACSA, 5.8 million for safety nets, sum of 4.8 million for domestic capital spending.
Sorry, Mr. Minister, you can take a sip of water. But at this juncture, Mr. Speaker, the time is past 12. I move that SO5 to be suspended for the business of the House to continue.
Thank you. Any seconder to that motion?
I so second, Mr. Speaker.
All in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Mr. Minister, you may continue.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the Ministry of Social Welfare is also allocated a sum of 23 million from the recurring budget, of which 13 million is for social safety net program, including diets for approved school and program for disabled. In addition, the sum of 2.5 million is allocated for domestic capital spending for the rehabilitation of approved school and the remand homes and the livelihood support for disabled persons. Honorable members, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the Ministry of Employment, Labour and Social Security is allocated 17 million, of which 5 million for social safety nets for the aged. The Ministry of Gender and Children Affairs is also allocated 6.9 million, of which 3.7 million is for the Gender and Children Affairs Program, and 3.1 million is for the Children's Commission. And in addition, 800,000 is allocated for the establishment of the Women Economic and Development Fund and reintegration of street children. Infrastructure and technology. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the sum of 655.2 million is provided for the domestic capital budget to support the implementation of infrastructure and technology projects. Roads. Of this amount, 186.7 million is allocated to the Sierra Leone Roads Authority for the ongoing construction, rehabilitation, and completion of trunk and township roads. Of this, 45 million is for the completion of township roads, and 30 million is for the rehabilitation of major highways, and 8.5 million for the regathering work on selected trunk roads. The allocation also include budgetary provisions for the construction of Kabbalah Falaba Rubola Road, the Green Lunge Konakridi Road, the Bandajuma Kujang Bonapi Road, the Zimi Kelma Zimi Road, the African Development Bank, Badia, and the Creative Fund will also disburse 137 million loans to support the implementation of several roads projects, including Tikobo Kotema Matujong Road and the Mano River Road Development Transport Facilitation. In addition, government is providing 99 million from the domestic capital budget as counterpart contribution towards the implementation of these roads. The wages and salaries of staff of SLRE will amount to 35 million, with 6 million unions. Energy. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the sum of 122 million is provided for the recurrent budgets to the energy sector, of which 35 million is for the completion of the 7 districts electricity project, 12 million for the construction of the Dodo Hydro Dam, 5 million for the installation of mini grids. And in addition, government is providing 895 million as subsidy to ESTA for the payment of outstanding invoices to the independent power provider, including CAPA and Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Sierra Leone, CLSG transmission line. The World Bank, African Development Bank, and the Indian Exim Bank will disburse 1.7 billion for the implementation of several projects in the energy sector, including installation of the 14 megawatts containerized solar power, rehabilitation and extension of the Bokanama distribution system, and rehabilitation of the transmission lines in the western area. The EU supporting improvement in the energy access under the Transformational Energy Access for Sierra Leone project. Government is providing 5.3 million CARICOM funding towards the implementation of this project. In addition, government is providing 5.9 million for the administrative expenses and 9.5 million for wages and salaries to the energy sector, to the energy ministry. Water supply. The sum of 34 million is allocated from the domestic capital budget to the Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation, of which 33 million is to the Lunge Water Supply Project. In addition, 95 million is allocated to the Sarwako, of which 65 million is for the construction of water supply facilities in 6 district headquarters towns. 8.5 million for the construction of water supply systems in Mamburu, Kamakwe, and Markupo, and 8.5 million for the construction of water supply systems in Bonds Municipality. The Guma Valley Water Company is also allocated 7.5 million for the restoration of water supply at IMAT, aid station communities, and extension of the distribution system, network system by 20 kilometers. From the recurring budget, Mr. Speaker, honorable member, the sum of 19 million is provided by the Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation, of which 4 is for Water Resource Management Agency, 10 million for grants to Sarwako, the wage bill for the ministry, and allied agencies will amount to 28 billion euros. The Saudi fund will disburse 10.4 million to Sarwako for the drilling of 100 solar-powered boreholes. The African Development Bank OFID Kuwaiti Fund will disburse 25 million to the Guma Valley Water Company under the Fleet of the Wash project. Communication and Technology. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, Ministry of Communication and Technology has allocated 9 million from the recurring budget, of which 5 million is for administrative costs and 4 million for DSTI. And the sum of 5 million is allocated for the domestic capital budget for the officialization and expansion of the e-government platform. World Bank will disburse funds for the implementation of the digital transformation project. Government buildings. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government is also allocating 168 million from the capital budget to the Ministry of Works and Public Assets for the rehabilitation of existing presidential lodges, State House, the provincial and district administrative buildings, and lifts at the EA building. The amount also covers construction of administrative buildings of Judiciary and Ministry of Employment, Labour and Social Security. And from the concurrent budget, the sum of 49 million is allocated to the Ministry of Work, of which 6 million is for Public Asset Division for the payment of rents and rates, and the wage bill for the ministry will amount to 6.4 million euros. Economic diversification. Tourism. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, government is allocating 11 million from the recurrent budget to the Ministry of Tourism and Cultural Affairs, 6.5 million to the National Tourist Board, 3.4 million to the Monuments and Relics Commission, and 1.9 million to the National and Rail Museums. From the domestic capital spending budget, the sum of 7.5 million is allocated to the Ministry of Tourism and Cultural Affairs. 4.3 million is for the construction of Tourism Information Center, and 3 million is for the construction of physical infrastructure for cultural heritage. Trade and private sector development. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, to encourage the expansion of private sector investments, activities, and promote trade, government is allocating 20 million to the Ministry of Trade and Industry, of which 14 million is for export development, quality control, business reforms, and consumer protection. The sum of 18 million is also allocated to the National Investment Board and 4.2 million to SMIDA. From the domestic capital spending, 10 million is allocated to SMIDA and additional capital to Munafa Fund. Governance and accountability. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in line with the government unwavering commitment to improve governance, the sum of 30 million is allocated to the judiciary, 38 million is to the law officers department, 16.2 million to audit service Sierra Leone, 60 million to House of Parliament, 12 million to the Anti-Corruption Commission, 5 million to the Human Rights Commission, Sierra Leone, 159 million to National Electoral Commission, 6 million to Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion. The wage bill of the governance agencies, including other subvented agencies, will amount to 999.6 million. In addition, the sum of 441 is allocated to the Ministry of Defense, 307 million is allocated to Sierra Leone Police, 157 million to the Correctional Services, Sierra Leone Correctional Services, 12 million to the Fire Force Authority, 15 million to Central Intelligence Security Agencies, 17 million to the Office of National Security, 17 million to the National Disaster Management Agency, and the wage bill of the sector will amount to 908.3 million euros. Public administration. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, to support the coordination of the process of revamping public administration, government is allocating a sum of 7 million to the Ministry of Public and Political Affairs, 6.1 million, 4 million is allocated to the Cabinet Secretariat, 4.3 million to the Public Service Commission, 5.1 million to the Human Resource Management Office, and 3.3 million to the Public Sector Reform Unit. The sum of 1.7 million is also allocated towards the operationalization of the Wage and Compensation Commission. Employment, Youth and Sport. The Ministry of Employment, Youth, Labour and Social Security is allocated 17 million, of which 5 is for social safety nets. The Ministry of Youth is allocated 7 million, of which 3 million is for National Youth Commission. The National Youth Service is allocated 3.4 million. The Ministry of Youth is allocated 5.5 million for administrative expenses, and the National Sports Authority will receive 99 million, of which 93 is for sporting activities. Environment and climate. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, in support of efforts to address climate change risk, government is allocating 9.7 million for recurring budgets to the Ministry of Energy, Environment and Climate Change, 5.5 million to the National Protected Area Authority, 62 million to the EPA, 7.1 million to the Nuclear Safety and Radiation, and 6 million to Sierra Leone Meteorological Agency. In addition, 15 million is allocated to the Presidential Initiative for Climate Change, Renewable Energy and Food Security. Budget financing in 2024. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the budget deficit excluding grant is projected at 8.6 billion, 8.5% of GDP. The budget deficit including grant is projected at 2.7 billion, which is 2.7% of GDP. The deficit will be financed mainly by borrowing from the domestic banking system, projected at 3.5 billion, 3.5% of GDP. Borrowing from non-bank banking sector will amount to 277 million euros. Risk to the implementation of the 2024 budget. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, several factors could possibly derail the implementation of this budget and the achievement of its objectives. These include: 1. Continued geopolitical tensions, including escalation of Russia-Ukraine, prolongation and escalation of Russia-Ukraine war, and the Palestinian-Israel conflicts. Continued increase in global food and energy prices and its effects on domestic prices. Continued depreciation in the exchange rate and its impact on implementation of the budget. Weak recovery of the global economy and the general economic uncertainties, which may lead to decline in overseas development assistance and foreign direct investment. Delays and partial implementation of the medium-term revenue strategy and associated revenue shortfalls which may affect implementation of the Big Five game changers. Non-compliance by MDAs to stay within budget limits through persistent in-year requests for extra budgetary expenditures, including salary increases and weak financial performance and contingent liabilities of state-owned enterprises, which pose significant risk to the budget. Conclusion. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I started the presentation of this budget by highlighting that the global economy continues to encounter multiple and interrelated crises, shocks with spillovers to our domestic economy. The government is not oblivious of the current predicament of sierraleoneans in their effort to cope with daily economic realities. Accordingly, the 2024 budget has been prepared against the backdrop of restoring macroeconomic stability while protecting the poor and vulnerable. This is the theme of this statement. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the revenue and expenditure measures announced in this budget statement will create the fiscal space required to finance the Big Five game changers, including Feed Salon program, in a sustainable manner. The sustainable financing of government programs and projects will bring down the debt levels, while complementing the efforts of the Bank of Sierra Leone in lowering inflation and stabilizing the exchange rates. In addition, this budget outlined several social safety nets to improve the quality of life of the vulnerable segments of our society. The budget also highlights various programs and projects that will create job opportunities for our women and youth. These, in turn, will go a long way in addressing the high cost of living. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, as observed earlier in the statement, the repeated shocks in recent years have also exposed the vulnerability of our economy in general and food systems in particular to the geopolitical and economic fragmentation of the world economy. Therefore, we need to undertake bold reforms to boost the resilience of our economy. So these policies, reforms may appear to be difficult, but we need to implement them now to strengthen the capacity of our economy to withstand adverse external shocks. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the wide-ranging structural and sectoral reforms proposed in the budget statement, which are consistent with government priorities and articulated in the Big Five game changers, will lay the foundation for sustainable and inclusive economic recovery. These programs and policies demonstrate government's determination to tackle the socio-economic and development challenges, build resilience, and improve the quality of life of our citizens. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, sound economic and financial governance is critical for the effective delivery of the commitments that we have outlined in this budget. In particular, to achieve the deliverables of the Big Five game changers, it is imperative for MDAs to implement only policies and programs and projects that have been agreed in this budget. The Ministry of Finance will not entertain any expenditure outside the agreed budget to avoid overruns, accumulation of arrears, and wage bill pressures. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I would like to conclude this statement by thanking His Excellency, the President, Dr. Julius Maada Bio, for his leadership in crafting the visionary and transformative 5 years development program that will improve the lives, the living standard of our people, as well as puts our economy on a sustainable growth path. His guidance and oversight provided during economic management and cabinet meetings continue to motivate us to deliver the development outcomes required to change the lives of our citizens. I would like to thank the Honorable Vice President, Dr. Mohamed Jalo, for his commitment to launch the annual budget preparation process. I am particularly appreciative of his usual articulation of the government priorities and impetus he gives to the MDAs during budget policy hearings. The Chief Minister deserves commendations for championing the implementation of the Big Five game changers and his zest for effective service delivery. Other cabinet colleagues are also appreciated for their usual collaboration and support in shaping the budget framework and implementing key reforms. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the two Deputy Ministers of Finance possess a wealth of experience and have provided me with the required support in steering the fiscal and economic management of the country. I thank the two of my colleagues, they are not here today, they are out on official trips, very much for always working in a very collaborative manner. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I have a robust and dependable team at the Ministry of Finance, whose invaluable contribution towards the achievement of my mandate must be commended. I want to sincerely thank the Financial Secretary, the Principal and Deputy Financial Secretary, the Senior Deputy Financial Secretary, the Accountant General, the Chief Economist, the Directors of Budget, all the directors and staff in the Ministry of Finance for working tirelessly in managing the fiscal and economic affairs of the country. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I specifically want to thank the Minister of Planning and Economic Development, the Development Secretary, and the staff of the Ministry for their contribution in preparing a capital budget that will ensure we deliver on the Big Five game changers. The leadership and team of all other MDAs continue to contribute in diverse ways the implementation of our development policies and programs, and therefore deserve commendation. I also want to thank the Governor Designate, the Deputy Governor, management and staff of the Bank of Sierra Leone for the continued collaboration and coordination in managing the economy, especially in these challenging times. The Commissioner General and management and staff of the National Revenue Authority are also recognized for contributing to the preparation of the medium-term revenue strategy. We look forward to the full implementation of the medium-term revenue strategy by the NRA and to provide the much-needed resources for the delivery of government priorities. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I would like to commend this noble House of Parliament, including your good self, the clerk and his staff, for the meticulous scrutiny and approval of the budget. The budget oversight activities of this noble House are deeply appreciated. My gratitude also goes to the non-state actors, including Budget Advocacy Network, District Budget Oversight Committees, civil society organizations, and members of the electronic and print media who continue to participate in our bilateral budget discussions and regularly monitor and report on activities of the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, let me also express my profound gratitude and appreciation to our development partners, especially the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the European Union, the African Development Bank, the FCDO of the United Kingdom government, the EBIT, Islamic Development Bank, Bavia, Government and People of Turkey, United Arab Emirates, the United States of America, Japan, China, India, Ireland, and Canada, as well as the UN family for their renewed support in partnering with our government for the successful implementation of the Big Five game changers over the next 5 years. I also wish to acknowledge the role of international and local NGOs in complementing the development program of the government in key sectors. The relevant government bodies will continue to coordinate and monitor these programs, especially at the local level. I owe the timely printing of the budget statement and estimates to the government printer and staff. Your usual untiring efforts and professionalism are deeply appreciated. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the implementation of the policy priorities articulated in the budget, including the feed salon human capital development, social safety net, infrastructure development, private sector development, improving governance and revamping the public administration gives hope to our people for an inclusive and prosperous nation. I therefore commend this budget to the House. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I move that the bill entitled the Appropriation Act 2024 be read the first time.
Before I put the question, I would like, on behalf of the entire House, to congratulate most warmly the Minister for his budget statement.
You did not tell us now.
There was one little omission, but that's a matter I will engage with the Minister in my chambers. It concerns me personally. And where I come from. When they mention roads and they don't mention Inti, it's a matter of great concern to me. Having said that, honorable members, the question is that the bill entitled the Appropriation Act 2024 be read the first time. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. And those against, say nay. The ayes have it.
The bill entitled the Appropriation Act 2024 has been read the first time.
Once again, Mr. Minister, I thank you most warmly. You may now take leave. And I also want to extend our warmest thanks to the police officer, the female police officer, who has helped any announcements.
The Office of the Whips of the Sierra Leone People's Party wants to inform all SLPP MPs to attend a very important meeting today, immediately after sitting in Committee Room 1. Please endeavor to attend and on time. Signed, Chief Whip Honorable Honorable Dixon Rojas.
Members of the Works Committee that please to inform members of the Works Committee that we meet immediately after in my office. To discuss the budget. Please, members of the Works Committee, immediately after 6 years. To discuss the budget. Less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
Less than 5 minutes.
Honorable members, order. Members of the gallery, take your seats. You are not allowed to leave. Honorable members, the House stands adjourned to Thursday, the 16th of November at 10 a.m.
Yes. Sam's, okay.